Microsoft just walked away from about 2 gigawatts of data centers. Amazon quietly hit pause, and towns across America have blocked or delayed projects worth more than $130 billion in 3 months. The headlines all say the same thing: the AI build is finally cracking. Except those exact same companies just raised their spending for next year to around $700 billion. So which is it? Are the biggest names in tech quietly backing out of AI? Or is something much weirder going on? By the end of this, you'll know exactly what they are canceling, what they are very much not, and the one wall that none of that money can buy its way past. Because here's the part nobody on your feed connects. Canceling and spending more than ever are both true at the same time. Let me show you how that works. It starts in February 2025. Analysts at a research firm called TD Cowen put out a note, and the note lands like a bomb. Microsoft, they say, has canceled data center leases, around 200 megawatts of them. That is roughly 2 whole data centers gone. A month later, a second note. Now the number is bigger. Across the United States and Europe, Microsoft has walked away from about 2 gigawatts of planned capacity. Out in Ohio, a $1 billion project goes quiet. In Wisconsin, parts of a $3 billion campus stop mid-build. Then Amazon. In April, a different set of analysts says Amazon has paused some of its data center leasing talks too. And the internet does what the internet does. The AI bubble is popping. They overbuilt. It's over. But slow down, because 2 things about that story are not what they look like. First, those numbers came from analysts reading the market, not from Microsoft confessing anything. Microsoft's actual response? We may strategically pace or adjust our infrastructure in some areas, but we will continue to grow strongly in all regions. Translation? We're moving some chess pieces, not flipping the board. And in the same breath, the company reaffirmed it would spend over $80 billion that year, while it was supposedly retreating. Second, watch where the capacity went. When Microsoft let those European leases lapse, Google and Meta reportedly swooped in and grabbed them. The data centers did not vanish. They changed hands. That is not a company fleeing AI. That is a company trading up. And look at the deals being signed while Microsoft was supposedly bailing. There's a project called Stargate, $500 billion to build AI infrastructure for OpenAI. And in a reworked deal, OpenAI committed to buy another $250 billion of Microsoft's cloud. So Microsoft steps back from a few sites, and the same customer commits $250 billion more. Some retreat. So if this were really a collapse, the spending would fall. Therefore, let's check the spending. In 2025, the 4 biggest cloud companies poured a record $410 billion into all this. The bubble year. And their plan for 2026? Around $700 billion, up roughly 77%. Amazon alone is guiding to $200 billion. This is the strangest retreat in corporate history. They are retreating forward at a dead sprint. So why do the headlines feel so true? Because 3 completely different stories are getting blended into one big panic. And once you can tell them apart, the whole picture snaps into focus. Let me pull them apart, because the difference is the part everyone gets wrong. Story 1 is the real one. Towns are fighting back. This is not analysts guessing. This is your neighbors at a council meeting. A group called Data Center Watch tracks it, and the trend line is steep. In all of 2025, local opposition blocked or delayed tens of billions in projects. Then, in just the first 3 months of 2026, that jumped to more than $130 billion across 75 projects. The number of active opposition groups roughly doubled, from under 400 to over 800 in 49 states. In Tucson, the city council lined up against a $3.5 billion campus. In Indianapolis, Google pulled a rezoning request minutes before it was going to lose the vote. Their number 1 complaint? Water. Then electric bills. This is real, it's growing, and it's local. Story 2 is the one people love to quote, and it's about a completely different thing. It's not about concrete, it's about software. An MIT report in the summer of 2025 found that around 95% of company AI pilot projects showed no measurable profit. 95 out of 100. That stat went nuclear. But read the fine print. That study is hotly disputed. The group behind it sells AI services, and it's measuring office chatbot experiments, not power plants. A company's failed AI pilot tells you nothing about whether Amazon is pouring a foundation in Indiana. And story 3 is the actual data center pullback we started with, the Microsoft leases, which, remember, came with the spending going up. Here's the trap. Headlines staple all 3 together. Towns block builds, plus Office pilots flop, plus Microsoft cancels leases, equals AI is dying. But the people buying AI having a messy year is a different story from the people selling it spending more than ever. Neither one is demand falling off a cliff. So if demand isn't the problem, what is? This is where it gets good. Because there is a wall. It's just not the one everyone's pointing at. And no amount of that 700 billion can knock it down. Picture it. You can build the shell of a data center, the actual building, in about 12 to 24 months. Fast. But the thing that makes it a data center instead of an empty warehouse is power. And power does not move at startup speed. Listen to Satya Nadella, who runs Microsoft, on a podcast late last year. He said the biggest issue is no longer chips. His words, "You may actually have a bunch of chips sitting in inventory that I can't plug in." Why? Because, he said, I don't have warm shells to plug into. Read that again. The most valuable company on Earth is sitting on piles of AI chips that it cannot turn on, because the building and the electricity aren't ready. And the electricity is the slow part. To connect a new power source to the American grid now takes, on average, around 5 years. The giant transformers you need? 2 to 4 years just to get one delivered. The gas turbines to make the power? The biggest maker is sold out into 2029. One single large AI campus can draw about a gigawatt of power. That is roughly a full nuclear reactor, enough for 750,000 homes, for one building. So you can pour the concrete in a year, but you might wait 5 years for the wire that brings it to life. That is the wall. Not too little demand, too little power. And it's why some of those canceled projects were really just sites where the power was never going to show up in time. Then there's water, because these machines run hot and water cools them. Researchers estimate training one older AI model used around 700,000 liters of fresh water, roughly a bottle of water for every 10 to 50 things you ask a chatbot. That is exactly why Tucson said no. But here's the cruelest part of the math, and it's the reason this might genuinely be a bubble even if the technology is real. The chips age faster than the buildings. Nvidia ships a brand new generation of AI chip almost every single year, and each one runs hotter than the last. A rack of the old Hopper chips drew about 40 kilowatts. The newer Blackwell racks? Around 120. Triple in one generation. So a building you designed for last year's chips can be half obsolete before the concrete fully cures. Which brings in one famous skeptic. Michael Burry, the investor from The Big Short, made a bet in late 2025. He argues these companies are pretending their chips last 5 or 6 years on the books, when the real useful life is closer to 2 or 3. If he's right, he says, they're overstating profits by around $176 billion. Now that's his theory, and plenty of people think he's wrong. But here's a number that isn't a theory. Next year, building all this will eat nearly all of the cash these companies generate, almost 100%, against a normal level closer to 40. They are betting the whole farm. So is it a bubble, or isn't it? Here's the honest answer, and it's the most useful thing in this video. It can be both. Think about railroads in the 1800s. Investors went wild, overbuilt, and a lot of them lost everything. About half the track from that frenzy was abandoned. But the rest? It became the backbone of a nation. Same with the internet. In the dot-com boom, companies laid huge amounts of fiber cable, then went bust. That cable sat dark for years. Then it quietly became the highway that runs Netflix and every video you've ever streamed. So both things are true. The money can be a bubble, while the wires are the future. The data centers, the power lines, the cooling. Even if a lot of investors get burned, that hardware will probably still be humming a decade from now, running things we haven't invented yet. That's the real story under the headlines. Nobody is quietly canceling AI. They're hitting a power wall, shuffling their bets, and spending money so fast it might burn a few of them on the way. Canceled and committed at the same time. So here's my honest question for you. When the dust settles, do you think the companies spending the money today are the ones who'll get rich? Or are they just laying the track for whoever comes next? Tell me below. I genuinely go back and forth on it. And if this finally made the AI bubble noise make sense, that's the whole point of this channel. AI explained without the hype. So hit subscribe and you'll be 3 steps ahead of the headlines. Send this to the one friend who keeps insisting the bubble's about to pop, or that it never will. And next time, we're answering the question this one raises. If it's all about power now, who is actually going to keep the lights on? I'll see you there.